Hey, all right, we're live. Sorry, I'm still adjusting the camera. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I don't know who will show up for this. This is kind of just an impromptu thing. I was going to do a live stream on Thursday and decided when I heard this news, like late last night, I was like, okay, I got to make a video on this because I'm super excited about the potential of Kang the Conqueror showing up in Ant-Man 3. And so I said, all right, I'm gonna just do a live stream on it tomorrow, and we'll talk about it. And whoever shows up, great. And and if not, people can watch it later or something. But then also the live stream I was gonna do on Thursday, we may move it up to today because I think I had my dates wrong. Tom Hardy's birthday is today, and I was thinking, for some reason, I thought it was a couple days from now. So on Thursday, I was going to do a live stream, and we were going to talk about the new Maximum Venom, cartoon thing, that they released a little trailer. So, and then I was going to mention Tom Hardy's birthday and a couple other things. So we'll just do that tonight, since tonight is Tom Hardy's birthday, and I kind of messed that up. So we'll do that later tonight. It'll probably be like around maybe like 8 or 9 p.m. tonight. We'll do it. We'll do the show. So what's up, Tron? How's it going? Welcome. Greetings and salutations. So we will do a Venom live tonight. We'll do a Venom vlog live, and we'll talk about, obviously to do something for celebrating Tom Hardy's birthday. I don't know what we'll do. We'll just kind of maybe talk about Tom Hardy movies or something, or, just talk about Venom in general. But then we'll have some Maximum Venom news to cover that came out recently. And then also Sony dropped some news about how they plan to release movies during the pandemic, which is they don't plan to do that at all. So they said they won't release any movies in theaters until the pandemic is a thing of the past. So that could affect, if this isn't, done, if we don't get better at, as a world and get through this pandemic by next year, it could, push everything back for, for Venom 2 and Morbius and everything like that, and Spider-Man 3. So that would be a bummer, but also being safe is obviously the more important thing. So we'll talk about all that and Tom Hardy's birthday and everything in tonight's episode. For this episode, though, I just want to talk about this news of Jonathan Majors being cast. I have the link if you want to check it out. Deadline. The link is in the description box. Thank you guys for the 3 thumbs up. I appreciate it. It's not really showing me who's. I've been having some trouble with live streams lately. So bear with me if I'm not like seeing everything. I see the comments, so if you want to jump in, feel free to comment. But thank you for the 3 thumbs up. I appreciate that. So Jonathan Majors, really good actor. He's in the Cthulhu show that's out right now about all the the different Cthulhu type monsters and stuff like that. And so I haven't seen the show personally, but I've been hearing like really good things, and a lot of people I've talked to that have seen the show tout Jonathan as one of the key elements of making that show really good, because they say he's a really good actor. And so I was like, that's great. That's good to hear. I'll have to sit down and watch the show at some point. But then Marvel clearly was like, hey, this guy is something, and we need to get a hold of him quickly. They're out there always scouting for new talent and stuff. And so Deadline is reporting, and like I said, the link is in the description box below if you want to read the article. They're reporting that he's been cast, or is in very deep negotiations to be cast in Ant-Man 3. So I don't know if any of this is majorly confirmed yet or anything. But hearing that's a good thing, and I was like, oh, that's great. They got a good actor, hopefully to bring, I don't know which character he was going to play to life. And, we'll see where that goes. Because Ant-Man 1, I really like that movie, actually. I think it's really fun, especially the final battle. I thought was a ton of fun. Like, there's elements in the movie that I thought were kind of silly and stuff. But for the most part, the end battle was great, where they're fighting in front of Thomas the Train and stuff, and the toy room and stuff. And I was like, that's genius. It's really fun. The second movie, though, I was kind of on. Like, the second movie, I felt like had elements there, but I felt like they had to explain the quantum realm, and I feel like maybe that wasn't a natural place to go for the sequel, but they had to get it in there because it had to set up Endgame, and they had to get rid of all the characters and and have them dust out and have Ant-Man get stuck in the quantum zone. So it felt like that was the impetus for the second movie, was we got to get it ready for Endgame. So it didn't feel like its own movie. Kind of like how Iron Man 2 was like, we got to just, get another movie in there before Avengers and set a couple things up. And that's what Ant-Man 2 felt like. So I was like, oh man, I love Paul Rudd and I love Evangeline Lilly and I want to, and Michael Douglas, and I want this universe, this character to like really, shine. And because I was a character I never really cared about too much until the first Ant-Man movie. So seeing that they're casting this guy, Jonathan Majors, for the third one, they are saying that even though it's not official, The rumor is that he's going to play Kang the Conqueror. And what's so cool about that is after I saw Endgame, the first thing I said to my friend was, we need to see Kang the Conqueror. Like, actually, I wanted Kang the Conqueror to be the villain of Endgame because I figured if someone went through and messed with time, which is what Ant-Man does, he proposes the notion of a time heist and using the quantum realm to travel through time. So it's Ant-Man's idea, Scott Lang's idea to do it. And so I was like, that would have been great, as if they don't even fight Thanos in Endgame because they kill him at the beginning of the movie, and now they go mess with time to go back and stop everything that happened, and that attracts Kang the Conqueror, and Kang the Conqueror could have been the villain of Endgame. That's what I wanted when Endgame came out when I was watching it. But I was like, oh well, they got to wrap up Thanos and then do that and do another final battle where everyone gets like kind of their revenge on him in a way. Even though they already kind of did in the opening. So I was like, yeah, that's, I wish it was Kang the Conqueror. And my roommate was like, at the time, my friend Victor was like, well, why Kang? Like, who's Kang? And I'm like, he's this time traveler. He's a descendant of Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four, from like the distant future. And he's a villain. And he's like, comes back in time and messes with time a lot. He shows up a lot in the current Doctor Doom comic book, so I would recommend checking that out because there's some cool Kang stuff in there. But if you really want to know some cool stuff about Kang that I think this movie can now go in the direction of, if it is Kang the Conqueror that's going to be the villain of Ant-Man 3, and some people are like, oh, that's, Kang should be a Avengers villain, this and that. I'm like, yeah, he should. But if you look at the movie universe, Ant-Man is the reason they travel through time. So it makes sense that Kang would show up and have a beef with Ant-Man because he messed with time. So I'm kind of into that. Like, if that's the case, like, I hope that's the case. I know there's the connection. Like I said, Kang the Conqueror is a deep descendant of Reed Richards. I don't even care if they make him a descendant of Reed Richards. You don't even have to use him to introduce the Fantastic Four. I would rather them introduce these characters, the Young Avengers. The Young Avengers so I grew up an X-Men kid and a Spider-Man kid. I didn't really read a lot of Avengers stuff, but I knew who Kang was, I knew who Ultron was, but I never really got into them. I liked Fantastic Four too, but I never really liked the Avenger comics when I was a kid. It wasn't until around this time that I started taking notice of the Avengers because Marvel was doing a big push for them. They had like Bendis on the new Avengers book, and then they had Alan Heinberg here come over and do Young Avengers. And Alan was an upcoming writer at the time. I think he was doing stuff like Grey's Anatomy and a couple other shows and other things in comics and stuff. But this book blew me away. As a non-Avengers fan, this book rocked my world because I thought this added something interesting that I thought the Avengers book never had. But also still grabbing the few things that now that I've gone back and reread old Avengers books, now I see the appeal of them and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess they were kind of cool. But they weren't as cool as the X-Men to me, and they still aren't, in my opinion. But reading Young Avengers, like, oh, the teamwork thing, the coming together at a time of crisis, forming at that moment, that's kind of what the Young Avengers are. They're being formed to fight Kang the Conqueror, because at this point in the comic books, the Avengers are disassembled. There's no Avengers team. So this kid shows up named Iron Lad, and Iron Lad shows up and he says, I need to put together a team of Avengers since the real Avengers are gone, because we need to be ready because Kang the Conqueror is coming and we need to fight him. And so he pulls together this team of awesome people. I'll show the back cover. This one's better. We have Hulkling up there. He's a shapeshifter. He's like a Skrull who shapeshifts. So I think he's half Kree, half Skrull, I think maybe. We have Patriot, who is back when Captain America or Steve Rogers was given the super soldier serum. There was another guy, a black guy that they did the super soldier serum on first. He was like a test before they did it on Steve Rogers. And his name was Isaiah Bradley. So this is Isaiah Bradley's grandson, who after a blood transfusion, because Isaiah gets injured as Patriot, he gets a blood transfusion from his grandpa and he becomes super powered like Captain America. So you have Patriot, you have Wiccan, who is the son of a Scarlet Witch, and I believe Vision. I don't think they've ever fully said if it's Vision or Wonder Man. I think it's Vision. So you have Wiccan. He's like a warlock kid. Him and Billy here, who is Hulkling. They're a couple in the team. Also, there's Kate. Kate Bishop, who is the Hawkeye of the team, and she and Patriot kind of have a thing. But it's like they both like each other kind of, but they kind of annoy each other at the same time. So it's kind of a fun dynamic. They have a new version of Vision who joins the team after something happens to our friend Iron Lad. And then you have the other connection to Ant-Man. This is Cassie, his daughter. Ant-Man's daughter becomes a giant girl known as Stature. So she doesn't shrink, she grows. So I was thinking about Ant-Man 3, and I was like, well, they already set up Cassie, right? She's already been in the movie, the Endgame. They introduced her in Endgame as being older. They also introduced Hawkeye's daughter, and I think they call her Kate in the Endgame movie as well, at the beginning of the movie. And so to me, I felt like in Endgame, I'm like, wow, they're kind of setting up some of these young Avenger kids in this movie. So hearing Ant-Man 3 might have Kang the Conqueror in it makes me really excited that maybe we'll see some version of the Young Avengers. Because I was thinking about that. I'm like, what if Cassie's dating this guy, this young kid, and now Paul Rudd is like, he's got to be that dad who's like protective of his teenage daughter, and he's like, oh my God, my daughter is dating a guy, and it's really weird to me because she was just like 6 years old last time I saw her, and she's dating this guy or whatever, and maybe that guy is young Kang the Conqueror. So that's what is revealed in this book. If you've never read it, it's really awesome. I recommend it highly. The Young Avengers by Alan Heinberg and Jim Chung. This book reveals that the reason Iron Lad is putting together this team to fight Kang the Conqueror is because he himself is Kang the Conqueror as a teenager. Because Kang the Conqueror went back in time to see himself as a teenager and say, hey, you're a wimp. Let's turn you into a man sooner so we can maybe actually accomplish a goal and go back in time and stop the Avengers and all these other characters. And he's like, no, I don't want to become evil. And he takes Kang's armor and then comes back to the present, retools it to look like iron armor, and then disguises his friends to be the new group of Avengers to protect the world for when he himself, his older version, Kang, shows back up. And of course, when Kang comes, he's like, you have to go back and become me, or else this whole timeline disappears. So there's this very big tragic decision that Iron Lad has to make at the end of this book, where he's like, I don't want to go back. I'm in love with Cassie, and I have friends now, and we're good guys. If I go with you back to my future, or my present in the future, I'll become you, and I'll be a bad guy, and I don't want to be a bad guy anymore. And Kang's like, that's our destiny. That's what you've got to do. So I love that. I actually love that so freaking much. And I've never really seen them touch on that too much afterwards, which is a shame. They do have other Young Avengers books after this, but I felt like most of the writers that handled them, even Alan Heinberg, when he came back and did the Children's Crusade, it was an okay book. It was dealing with Scarlet Witch and her No More Mutants thing. It was a pretty good book, but it just didn't have the impact that this one had. And neither does any of the other Young Avengers books out there. So at the possibility that Jonathan Majors is playing Kang the Conqueror, I hope they touch on this. I saw a report from Grace Randolph, I think, where she said her sources tell her that there's 2 scripts for Ant-Man 3. One of them introduces Young Avengers, and one introduces, I think, Fantastic Four. I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan. You guys know I have that entire Stan Lee and Jack Kirby run of comic books. I love that book so much. The Thing is one of my favorite characters in Marvel. You got Black Panther first appeared in those pages of Fantastic Four, Galactus, Silver Surfer, the Inhumans, which I have Inhuman tattoo on my arm, for Black Bolt. I love that universe and the Fantastic Four, but I would much rather the Young Avengers be introduced here and the Fantastic Four come in some other way. To me, you don't need to make Kang the Conqueror a descendant of Reed Richards. That's not important to me for that character. What's important to me is that you just tell a good story with them. And I thought Young Avengers told a really great Kang the Conqueror story. So that's why I wanted to cover it here. And let's see. Kang, what's up? Cancel culture waiting to happen. Oh, because he's black. I don't think that's a big deal. And it's funny. Yeah, I guess Kang, because in Young Avengers, he's they show him without his armor on. He's a white kid. So I knew who Kang the Conqueror was growing up, but I didn't know what race he was growing up because he always had that armor on. So I never really knew what his ethnicity was, except they said he was the descendant of Reed Richards, which doesn't really matter because my great grandkids could probably not even be white. So to me, it never I never knew that much about King the Conqueror about that until I read Young Avengers, and I was like, oh, okay. But to me, like that's not important. If you get a good actor to play a good character, they did that in Doctor Strange did that actually. They turned the Ancient One into a Celtic female, and then they changed Baron Mordo's race as well. And in both cases, they got great actors to play those parts. So for me, that's yeah. I'm not worried about that, but I'm sure people will make a big deal out of that kind of stuff for sure. To me, I'd rather just a good actor play a good character, and that's the thing about villains in the Marvel universe is besides one or two of them, or maybe two or three of them, there haven't been really any good villains. So that's why I'm also a little worried that King the Conqueror is going to be in this because I don't want him to be I don't want them to undercut his uniqueness and his coolness because like I said, I grew up an X-Men fan, so I was never an Avengers fan growing up. But this Young Avengers book made me kind of interested in the Avengers universe and kind of was my gateway into more of it. And Kang is by far my favorite villain for the Avengers. Although I love Doctor Doom, he's my favorite favorite DC. Oh my God, no, he's my favorite Marvel villain. But Doctor Doom is my favorite Marvel villain of all time, like easily. Actually, he's my favorite villain in all of comics, DC and Marvel included. He's absolutely my favorite. I love Doctor Doom. He's the best. But as far as like Avengers, with my limited knowledge of them, Kang's my favorite villain. So when I heard the possibility that this guy Jonathan is going to play Kang, I was like, I gotta at least talk about it on a quick video. So that's what I wanted to do here. I appreciate you guys leaving your thoughts, and thank you for the 4 thumbs up. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're here live and you want to drop your thoughts real quick before we leave, feel free. If not, if you're watching later, drop your thoughts in the comments. We can talk more about it there. But I was, like I said, that's how excited I was when I heard this news. I was like, I got to do a live episode like right now. I was on the phone with my friend Gene last night, who is a huge Avengers fan. He loves Avengers. He was more Avengers growing up than X-Men, and I was the X-Men guy. And Gene is so excited for this news. He's like super pumped. And when I heard his enthusiasm, I was like, I was already pumped too, but it made me more pumped too. And I was like, I got to make a video on this. Is Kang Reed Richards' father? No, actually, 2000 man. He's Reed Richards' like great grandchild. Like he's from the far future. So he's like a descendant of Reed Richards. So he's not his father. He's just but he's like a distant child or offspring of Reed Richards. So that's kind of his role. Although they never really, I mean, they touch on that sometimes, but I never. Again, my knowledge of the Avengers stuff is limited. Like I said, I've been reading comics 30 years, but I've probably read like 10 comics that had Avengers characters in them between like the late 80s and early 2000s, like maybe 10. I doubt even 10. Maybe a couple Captain America issues I've read, 1 or 2 Avengers books that cross over with X-Men, and then like a Thor book or something. But that's it. I've never been into those characters until like the early 2000s when Marvel started pushing them more. So I started getting into them then. So I was like a really late bloomer as far as a comic fan to Avengers. So I don't know the full history and stuff, but from what I remember of Kang and the few stories I've read, they never really make a big deal out of him being a descendant of Reed Richards. So that's why, to me, if you're doing the movie version, like I said, Grace Randolph says that there's 2 scripts for this movie. There's a Fantastic Four version and there's a Young Avengers version. I would rather them do the Young Avengers version because to me, Kang being connected to Reed Richards is not that big of a deal. And to wedge in Reed Richards into an Ant-Man movie just to set that up seems kind of silly to me too, because it's not essential, I feel, to the Kang character. I think the essential part is that he's a time traveler that's coming back and that he's pissed off that Ant-Man convinced the Avengers to time travel. That's the kind of thing that would upset Kang the Conqueror because he's like a time master. So to me, that'd be really cool to see that he's like, hey, you're the guy who convinced the Avengers to travel through time and save the universe. And because so you've changed and altered history. So now I'm here to take you down. I think that's kind of neat because then you kind of almost can see Kang's point of view. That would be a villain where you're like, oh, I guess I kind of understand why he's mad. Because he's supposed to he's this time traveling, guy who likes to do things his way since he's the sole, guy who can move through time the way he does. So to see someone else move through time and convince others to do it too, to alter the course of history, I could see how that could upset Kang. So that's a good motivation, I think, for a villain in a movie. And it almost would make you side with him. You're almost kind of like, well, yeah, Ant-Man he was trying to do the right thing, and they ended up saving the day with the Avengers and Endgame and stuff, but that does have to have consequences too. And I like that Kang would show up to, confront Ant-Man about those consequences. I think that could be cool because it was Scott Lang's idea to do it. It wasn't like Hank Pym's idea. It was Scott Lang's idea. That's cool. Will we see multiverse Kangs since Endgame destroyed the timeline because there was a council of Kangs all trying to save the timeline? That's what I was saying. Is like Kang's kind of like this being that moves through time, but yeah, there's the Council of Kangs, which I forgot about. So thank you for mentioning that because me and my friend Gene talked about that last night. There's the Council of Kangs who kind of have that like we're the time masters. We're trying to make sure that the movement of time isn't disrupted. And so when you have an event like Ant-Man taking the Avengers on a time heist, that does upset the flow of time, especially in the main universe. Not to mention the ramification. It apparently shouldn't have had ramifications for the other universes because they put all the time stone or all the Infinity Gems back. Because that was the thing is the Ancient One said if you move a time stone out of time, or if you move an Infinity Stone out of time, it creates another timeline. So by putting them all back at the end, should have kept them all in the same timeline, except for Loki. Technically, Loki has an Infinity Gem, and he used it to get away. So technically, there is one Infinity Gem at one point that is out of time. So I don't know. Actually, that's a good thing to think about. Actually, so that's probably what the Loki show will be about. So so I don't know, but I know Marvel is trying to gear up and do more multiverse stuff. But for me, for Ant-Man 3, I hope it's just about the ramifications of time. So we'll see because they're bringing back the original director Peyton Reed, I think his name is, and he says he's a big Fantastic Four fan. So I'm sure he's trying to push to get Fantastic Four in this movie somehow. But I hope his ambitions to do that are not given to him on some level. Like I know that sounds kind of mean, but this guy has produced or had directed 2 Ant-Man movies that haven't really turned a major profit for the studio. They're actually 2 of the least profitable movies that Marvel has made are the 2 Ant-Man movies. And although I like the first Ant-Man movie, minus a couple of things in it, the second one really did kind of fall off track a little bit. Because like I said, it was like Marvel going, we got to get this stuff in so it sets up Endgame. I think if Peyton Reed has like a deep desire to tell something that he wants to do, I feel he hasn't really earned it yet. Technically, in my opinion, as far as like I look at movies like a business, that's just how it is. Like I love people that are creative that work in movies and stuff, and you need those people big time. But if that creativity doesn't lead to a profit, there has to, like, as a studio, your reaction has to be, hey, we can't really let you do this anymore. So they didn't fire Peyton Reed, although he made 2 movies that didn't turn a big profit. So I kind of feel like look at Thor Ragnarok. I'm not a big fan of that movie, but they brought in Taika Waititi, and that was probably financially the smartest thing they could have done for that movie because they made it like this big Jack Kirby cartoon, and people loved it. And they put the Hulk battle in there and everything, and people loved it. Like so, you had like a little Planet Hulk in there, you had a little bit of everything, and that made like so. I would say Ragnarok is probably the most popular Thor movie, although it's probably it's not my least favorite because I would say Dark World is probably maybe a little less. I don't know. I would say Dark World I like a tiny bit more. And Dark World's not even that good of a movie, I feel. But still, like what I'm saying, it's like the Thor movie came into its own in the 3rd movie. Ant-Man, I don't think it can with Peyton Reed as the director. So if he's like, hey, I want to do Fantastic Four, I kind of want them to say no. Like do Young Avengers. I hope that's what Marvel's response is like don't try to cram in too much because that's what I feel like will happen. He'll try so hard to bring in Reed Richards and focus on getting Reed Richards right that he won't make Scott. There won't be a lot of focus on Scott, or there'll be less focus on Scott and Wasp. And then even Kang. Like I feel like all those characters will take a backseat to Peyton Reed wanting to do Fantastic Four. and him introducing Reed Richards or something. So to me, I hope they don't go the Fantastic Four route. And I hope if they do make a Fantastic Four movie, they don't get Peyton Reed to do it. Like, although he is a big fan and that's great, but I've seen a lot of times where people say, "Oh, I'm a huge fan of this thing," and they make horrible versions of it, i.e., Resident Evil. And we're about to get a Resident Evil Netflix show from a guy who says he's a big fan, and his story sounds awful for that show. So sometimes big fans are not who you want to make these movies. Sometimes you want someone with passion for sure, but sometimes when they're just big fans, they wedge these stupid things in that just don't matter to the story. So I'm a little nervous about that. Grace Randolph had a theory about Young Avengers team or some of those characters in Ant-Man 3. Yeah, I think I didn't watch her whole video. I just watched like the clip of her talking about her source saying that there's 2 scripts that were written for Ant-Man 3. One of them was introduces the Young Avengers or is more Young Avengers focused, and then the other one is more Fantastic Four focused. That's all I've heard, and I don't know if what she's saying is true. I mean, she's just going off what her sources tell her, so we don't know if that's what that is. It's just a rumor because we can't corroborate that or anything. But still, I was like, I was like, if that is the choice, then I hope they go with the Young Avengers route, because you already have Cassie and you already have Hawkman's daughter. You could bring her back in, or Kate. I think they're gonna do Kate in they're gonna like bring her to life in the Hawkeye TV show or something. So that's what I'm saying. It seems like they already have the foundations and the interest to bring in some Young Avengers characters. So to me, I hope Ant-Man 3 kind of ties into that instead of being a jumping off point for a new thing like Fantastic Four. I'd rather them just kind of stay in their lane and just kind of, feel like they're part and connected to that, as opposed to being like the ground zero for a Fantastic Four universe of movies and stuff. To me, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. I want the Fantastic Four to be their own thing, so we can get a heavy focus on those characters who deserve a good amount of screen time and stuff. And I actually hope Fantastic Four and X-Men are done as Disney Plus shows, even, to be honest with you. I don't necessarily need. I mean, the Fantastic Four. If I had to pick between FF and X-Men, I'd say FF should be the movie and X-Men should be the TV show, because the X-Men just have too many characters, and you got to really flesh those characters out. That's the one thing those Marvel Fox movies didn't really do well, is they fleshed out like Xavier, Magneto, and Wolverine, and they used Mystique and Jean Grey a lot, but I wouldn't say they really fleshed those characters out too much, which is a shame, because there's a lot of great characters in the X-Men universe, and it's like you get more from Colossus in the Deadpool movies than you do in the X-Men movies, and that's just kind of weird and frustrating on that level. Although it's still nice to have cool Colossus stuff, so I'm happy either way. But yeah, I don't know. To me, I would rather see Fantastic Four go be a movie and X-Men just be a Disney Plus show where you can focus on all the characters and juggle them and set up the world and stuff. To me, I would much rather do that, because then I would get more content, more X-Men content. That's the other reason. It's selfish. I don't want a 2-hour movie. I want 8 hours of a TV show. But Fantastic Four, I think it'd be a good movie. They could set up alternate dimensions, all that stuff. I'd love for them to go to the negative zone and find Annihilus and awaken Annihilus. I think that would be pretty cool. Or fight Mole Man. And, we haven't seen those characters in any of the FF movies. So I'd love to see something like that. And then you just build Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom could be a character you introduce in Fantastic Four movie or Doctor Strange movie. You can just have him just be this character that reoccurs in a lot of movies, has a scene or two here and there like Thanos did. And then you just kind of build up Doctor Doom. Because Doctor Doom, if you're going to follow Thanos with a villain that everyone needs to fight to take down, I hope it's Doctor Doom. He's so freaking cool. And I hope they get a good actor to play him. All right, but anyway, that's a 30-minute marker, so we're going to wrap this up. 2000 Man, thank you for being here, for popping in. Tron, thank you too. And then Ranville. Oh, I thought it was 7. Ran 7. I thought it was Ran 7. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. We will come back tonight, probably like around maybe like I don't know, maybe like 8:30, 8 to 8:30. We'll come back and we'll do an episode tonight with where we talk about Tom Hardy's birthday. We talk about Venom stuff, Maximum Venom episode 5. We got the synopsis, we got a trailer for it and everything. So we'll come back and talk about all that stuff later tonight. But for now, I just wanted to get this up and talk to you guys and show my excitement, and also mention Young Avengers. If you don't have this, go buy it. It's awesome. Whether you buy the digital copy or the main copy. I don't think you can find this hardcover anymore. This is from like 2000 and like 2002 or something like that, 2003. I actually went to a book club after I got this like years ago, and we everyone signed it and wrote like we treated it like a high school book, like after you like graduate from high school and everyone's signing your yearbook. We treated it like that because we all met, and it was the last time I was gonna meet with those people because I had, I was recovering from my aneurysm and I was going to move back to LA. And one of the last things I did was go to this book club, and we all read Young Avengers together and kind of nerded out over it. So yeah, I mean, it's a great book. I got a lot of good memories of it, thankfully, and I recommend it more than anything. There's a lot of great Marvel books out there. Young Avengers is one that you should definitely check out, and I think you'll become a fan of a lot of the characters on that team, especially Iron Lad, who then forms into the new Vision. I really love that. That was a great story. So you guys let me know your thoughts on all this stuff you're watching later on down below, and we'll continue our conversation down there. And everyone here live, thanks again for being here. Thanks for making my day. Thanks for the 5 thumbs up. And I'll see you later tonight when we talk about more Venom stuff. Peace.